What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson. And the New York Giants finally signed a center. They added some depth to their offensive line. We know after John Feliciano departed for the San Francisco 49ers in free agency, Nick Gates went to the Washington Commanders, the Giants were left painfully wafer thin at the center position this offseason. Only Ben Bredeson was the last man standing, and he's supposed to be the projected starter at left guard. So who's going to play center for the New York Giants this upcoming season? Well, maybe they go out and draft somebody. Maybe they go out and sign J.C. Hassenauer, and that's who they signed today. He's a veteran player who has connections to Brian Daboll that could potentially compete for that starting center job for this upcoming season. Now, again, I think that there's still a chance that they go after a center in this upcoming draft to compete alongside Hassenauer, but we want to go ahead, dive into that possibility, dive into what Hassenauer brings to the Giants and everything in between. So we're going to go ahead and dive into all that right now. But before we do, make sure to leave a like if you do enjoy this episode, subscribe to the channel if you're new, ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts on the topic down below. But without further ado, Alex, how are you doing today, and what are your thoughts on the J.C. Hassenauer signing?
I'm doing great, man. It's Friday, heading into the weekend. We got some holidays. We had just had Passover. Easter's coming up. Lots of family time. You gotta love it. I hope everyone's staying safe out there and making sure to spend time, quality time with family and friends. But guys, finally get ourselves a center. Now, is this guy a starter? No. Let's get that out of the way right now. He is not a starter. He is competing. He is a depth piece. He is someone that you just need to fill a roster spot competing during training camp. Now, I'll tell you about him a little bit. J.C. Hassenauer, he's 6'2", 295 pounds, former Alabama Crimson Tide, drafted in 2000, or actually was rather undrafted free agent in 2018, landed with the Atlanta Falcons. He's played in 3 professional seasons. Last year, he only played in 46 offensive snaps. He has about 700 offensive snaps to his name at the NFL level, in which he's never given up a sack, 2 quarterback hits, 10 hurries, 12 total pressures. He gave up 5 penalties in his rookie season, but only gave up 1 over the last 2 seasons. So when he's been on the field, he's actually been decent. Like, he hasn't been a liability per se, but I also would go out and kind of indicate like he hasn't been starter worthy, which is why he hasn't gotten starting snaps. He's been more of a depth piece, not a supplementing injury, but he's only 27 years old. So the Giants probably looking at him and saying, okay, this player's young, coming from Alabama. You know, the Giants have tons of coaches, some of them from Alabama, some from all over the place. So I'm sure some of them do know Hassenauer, maybe know what he's capable of. This is a young guy who has some NFL experience and, maybe can elevate his game, compete for starting snaps. But ultimately, I think the Giants are going to end up drafting a center anyway in the second, third round. So, when you're drafting a player, you don't really know what you're always getting from a rookie. He could struggle, injury. Like, there's always some things that could bubble to the surface, and having some decent depth, some guys that can compete there on cheap contracts is never a bad thing. This is a minimum signing, right? You're looking at like a veteran minimum signing. So it can't hurt to have him on the roster just competing for a depth spot. Maybe he elevates his game. Maybe he takes to the coaching and suddenly turns into a starting level player. Unlikely, but you never know. We've seen it happen all the time with different guys. So Anthony, when you're looking at Hassenauer, what are you expecting from him? This isn't a guy that I'm expecting much, but we didn't have a center on the roster already. So I do feel as though the Giants here are starting to allocate some attention, allocate some resources. This is a guy they brought in for a visit a couple weeks ago. So a couple weeks later, they're like, okay, you know what? We need some depth there. We can use him. Had a good workout, evaluated everything, looked at the film, and then decided, okay, he's worthy of competing on our roster during, training camp and whatnot. So I'm excited to see what he can offer. But what are your thoughts, and what do you think he can contribute to this team moving forward?
Yeah, what can he contribute? I think quality depth. Now, does he open the season as a starter? Maybe. It's possible. But that would take the Giants pretty much neglecting this position throughout the entirety of this upcoming draft in order for J.C. Hassenauer to be the penciled-in starter and in week 1. And I'm hoping that that's not the case. Now, let's go over what I like about J.C. Hassenauer and kind of where I'm not super excited about it. Now, firstly, let's talk about why I'm not super excited, because I think a lot of Giants fans are looking at this as the Giants starting center. Like, oh, the Giants started, they signed the center, this is going to be the guy, he's probably going to start their week 1. I actually don't think that this is the John Feliciano signing. signing compared to last year. I think this is more of the Nick Gates signing because J.C. Hassenauer, if you look at his career, 7 career starts, 5 of them came at center, 2 of them came at left guard. So this is actually a player who has a little bit of positional versatility, and I think that he's just going to be your interior offensive lineman backup, meaning that he can play center, he can play left guard. God forbid there's an injury at right guard, he can even go in there. He can just kind of move around the offensive line and compete as a quality backup the same way that Nick Gates did for the New York Giants this past season. Now, if you don't remember, Nick Gates competed for the center job, didn't win it, didn't win the left guard spot either, but then so many injuries piled up, he eventually became the starting left guard, and I think that's exactly what you can imagine with J.C. Hassenauer. He has the potential to start at center, potentially, maybe. He can compete there, but if he doesn't win that job, he's just going to be your backup just in case of any emergency at left guard and center. So that's what I like about him, and that's kind of what I envisioned for him, kind of rolled into one. But listen, this is a player that does not prevent you from taking a center early in the draft. As you just mentioned, Alex, you still expect the Giants to address the position within the first 3 rounds. So do I. I've been saying this for a couple weeks. There's 3 positions that I think will get addressed in the first 3 rounds: wide receiver, cornerback, and center. That does not change now that the Giants signed J.C. Hassenauer. But here's something that I do really like about J.C. Hassenauer, and it's his connection with head coach Brian Daboll. Now, Brian Daboll, if you guys don't know, was the offensive coordinator at Alabama in 2017. So he did coach Hassenauer, and he actually has a really nice quote about him, which I will read off to you right now. Quote, where is it? Quote, he's a smart, tough guy. To play offensive line, you have to have both of those qualities. You have to be smart and you have to be tough. You've got to be able to work well with the guys that are beside you and handle the roles that you need to handle in terms of playing that spot. He's done a really good job of working all year, whether he was starting or not starting. He's a good young professional. End quote. So kind of a glowing review there. You could tell that Brian Daboll thinks highly of J.C. Hassenauer, always has since his time at Alabama. And I think I like what he said there about having to play your spot and having the qualities to kind of play in more than one spot and being tough and dependable. Now, we have heard Joe Schoen say that probably a million times. You have to be smart, tough, dependable. How many times have we heard Joe Schoen go out into the media and say that? And this is kind of one of those quotes from 2017 where Brian Daboll is saying what we hear Joe Schoen say in 2022 and 2023. So this J.C. Hassenauer signing makes a lot of sense. The connection is there, the playing style is there, the mentality is there. So Alex, what are your thoughts on that quote from Brian Daboll, and how confident do you feel that J.C. Hassenauer can just be one of those smart, tough, dependable guys?
Listen, anytime Brian Daboll says something good about somebody, you gotta listen because he obviously knows what he's talking about. You know, we've seen him get a lot of value out of players that otherwise shouldn't be starting on any team. You know, look what they got out of Isaiah Hodgins and look at what he's doing. Got a little bit of confidence and now he's ready to roll. Really, really exciting there. There's so many players like that, you know, just go under the table. You don't even realize that are making an impact on this team, whether it's off the field or on the field. And Brian Daboll, if he sees something in you, you know, you're like the chosen one. And obviously, Hassenauer, is he a great player? No. You know, he's a developmental player that hasn't had a lot of NFL experience. But if Brian Daboll sees something that he can contribute, sees something and a reason for him to be on this team, I trust Brian Daboll's opinion. And I trust Joe Schoen's opinion. So that's kind of where we're at right now, is the roster construction has been so much better this year and last year than it has been in such a long time. I'm always willing to give them the benefit of the doubt when it comes to players like this. Smart, dependable, reliable players who have upside. That's what you want on veteran minimum deals. You know, those veteran minimum deals, those minimum contracts, they have to have value. You can't just be plugging in guys that have no value on a team. They've got to have potential. There has to be upside there with a lot of them. And this is a guy who's going to make a minimum level deal, and he's going to have a lot of potential and a lot of upside. He's only 27 years old, hasn't really been given that many opportunities at the NFL level. Let's see what he's got, and let's see what our coaching staff can do to make him even better. But I do want to transition over to another topic really quickly, in that the Giants offense, pretty much the entire offense, is in Arizona right now training together before camp even starts. That is awesome, right? I love this stuff. Daniel Jones has been doing this for years now, you know, before training camp, before any of these things. He's in Arizona, wherever the hell they are, and he's practicing. Obviously, David Sills has always been a part of that group, but this year, the list is almost too names to even read. I'll read them off to you. Daniel Jones, Tyrod Taylor, Saquon, Sterling Shepard, Darren Waller, Bellinger, Lawrence Cager, Tommy Sweeney, who was just signed like 2 weeks ago, Dre Miller, Darius Slayton, Paris, Isaiah Hodgins, Colin Johnson, Jeff Smith, David Sills is still there, Mekhi Polk, Khalil Pimpleton. The list keeps going on. You know, you're seeing all of the receivers, all of these guys who are going to be contributing on special teams too. out in Arizona training, and they're getting ready for the season before the season even starts. These guys care. Our wide receiver one producer and Darren Waller, what we hope for him to be, he's there. And a lot of people that were saying from Oakland, if you read the comments, he didn't care. He wasn't that committed. He's there with the Giants right now training with them. Like, he sees an opportunity to really define himself and be a great player for this team and be a focal point. And that's awesome, man. I love to see the commitment. I love to see them taking that talent and putting it to the test before training camp or even OTAs even begin. They're committed, guys. Like, this team wants to do something this year. They want to take a big step forward. If they do take a big step forward, we made the playoffs last year with a team shredded with injury and shredded with inconsistencies and inexperience. What can happen if you get some more talent in this room, which we already have, and you get some better draft selections, some healthy ones for that matter? You get some of those healthy guys coming back from injury last year, those rookie class, a lot of them were down. You get some of those guys back. You already retooled some of the defensive spots. Obviously, you got Bobby Okereke, and that's really, really great for the Giants. So, looking at the offensive side, though, these guys are already looking to develop chemistry and already looking to build upon last season's success and compound on it. This is what you want to see from a team. This is what those small things, and will it translate to wins? Who knows? But for a fact, they're putting in the work to translate it into wins. They're putting in the work to have a great 2023 season, and that's all we can hope for at this point in time. That commitment is special, and Brian Daboll, you better believe, is right in the mix in helping to fuel those personal connections, fuel those chemistry building concepts, and it's a beautiful thing to watch, and this is something that I'm really excited about.
So am I. I mean, looking at that super long list, here's like my main takeaway from that. The hype is back, the care is back, the love is back, the passion is back. The New York Giants are back. I love seeing all of these players just get together, get working on, their timing, their chemistry so early on in the offseason. I think that it's really exciting to see, especially seeing, Daniel Jones is there, Tyrod Taylor is there, and then the whole arsenal of playmakers. All of the weapons are in attendance for the most part. Now, maybe there's a couple names here and there who aren't there, but really, you look at the receiving core, he's got Shep, he's got Paris Campbell there, he's got Darius Slayton there, he's got Isaiah Hodgins. There's your starters with Darren Waller and Daniel Bellinger and Lawrence Cager and Tommy Sweeney. I mean, that is the entire arsenal. It's the whole group. Maybe you could say there should be an extra running back or two behind Saquon Barkley at this training, but listen, man, give Saquon Barkley the practice. Let him gel with his players. This is a group. This is going to become a family the same way that it was last season. If you remember Brian Daboll talking about the family aspect of being a team and how important that was for them and their success, this is where that starts very early on. April. I mean, you don't have training camp until July. OTAs, I think, are in June. You've got a long time before things really start to ramp up and before the Giants have to start practicing. But just to see all of the players getting together, introducing themselves to each other, and practicing this early on in the offseason, that's so exciting for me. I just think that, first of all, I want to know who exactly led this. I have to assume it was Daniel Jones who sent the big group text and got everyone together for this, but I'll assume that it was Daniel Jones, but who knows, man? Maybe it was Saquon Barkley. Don't discount the fact that he's also a captain of this team and of this offense. And another thing that I will point out here is that Saquon Barkley, with the offense training in Arizona, doesn't sound like he's going to hold out. Doesn't sound like he's going to sit out if he's on the franchise tag. We know that he's been tagged. We know that we've speculated in the past that maybe he won't play on the franchise tag. Well, it's either that he's very hopeful that they get a deal done before the regular season, or he plans on playing on that damn tag. Otherwise, I can't imagine he would just be out there training in Arizona for fun, playing basketball with the guys. I saw pictures of that as well. So clearly they're not just there for business. They're also there for camaraderie. They're all getting to know each other, and I think that's really important because there's a lot of new faces on this list. I mean, yes, we've got the guys like Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, Sterling Shepard, but you also have new faces like Darren Waller, you have Paris Campbell, and a couple of these others, Jeff Smith as well. So there are some new faces, some new players that need to get to know each other, create that bond, create that family aspect that Brian Daboll loves to talk about. And so I just think that seeing these players get together so early on in the offseason is very exciting. I feel like in years past, we've seen Daniel Jones kind of host these little training events out in Arizona, sometimes at Duke, but he doesn't usually have this level of attendance. Like, this is 100% attendance, essentially. I mean, there is one or two players missing. Jamison Crowder's not there, which is actually surprising considering that he's a Duke product, the same as Daniel Jones, and they work out together in the offseason, even though they weren't on the same teams. But that's really not that important. What really is important is that there are so many players there working on their game together and getting to know each other. So, Alex, before we wrap up, any last initial thoughts or any closing thoughts, rather, on Daniel Jones getting the troops together in Arizona?
I mean, really, the only thing I can say is like compounding happiness has been really nice for me lately. Like seeing the Giants make good moves and smart moves and really efficient contracts and, doing things a much more modern way. And seeing when you pair roster building with like positivity and positive relationship building and chemistry orientation, like that builds success. You know what I mean? Like you look at good teams and what they do, and it all comes down to the leaders on the team, right? The leaders set the tone for everybody else. The Giants have a group of very good leaders right now. Daniel Jones, he gives me like the Eli Manning vibes in the sense that he doesn't say a lot, but he leads by example. And that's, I think, what Eli taught him when he was here for that 1 year. I think Eli taught Daniel Jones that you don't need to speak. You don't need to go on social media. You don't even need to have social media. All you got to do is go out there, perform, put your best effort in, and do what it takes to be great, and everybody will love you. Everybody will love you. You don't even have to say a freaking word, and everybody will love you if you can do those few things right. And you love to see Daniel Jones taking on that responsibility and running with it and taking everybody along for the ride. Look at all the guys the Giants just signed who are at that camp right now. This is their offseason. They could be going spearfishing like Leonard Williams, which sounds really cool, by the way. I definitely want to do that. But I'm not saying it's a bad thing by any means. But you see guys like Jeff Smith, who just signed a couple days ago. Darren Waller. You see so many of these players the Giants just got. You mentioned Jamison Crowder. He could still be recovering from that foot injury. I'm not sure what his process is like. But at the end of the day, you just love to see the progress this team is making and how they're following their leaders, they're following their coaching staff, and it's a beautiful thing to watch, and the compounding success has certainly made me very excited for the foreseeable future in this Giants team. So I'll kick it back to you to kind of wrap up here, but I am ecstatic. It just keeps getting better right now. Hopefully it translates to wins and we can really enjoy this upcoming season.
Man, it better translate to wins. I want to see wins, only wins. I don't want to see the Giants lose any more football games ever again for the rest of my life. I want Daniel Jones to win every single game that he plays as a member of the New York Giants, as we all do. And these practices right here are how the Giants win more games. Getting that chemistry, getting that bond with their brothers, it's very important when it comes time for the regular season. So I'm very excited about this, and I'm very excited to continue to cover the New York Giants all offseason long, all regular season long, all day, every day right here on Fireside Giants. So if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode and ring the bell so you get notified every time we upload. And please leave a like if you did enjoy this episode and comment your thoughts on J.C. Hassenauer and the Giants offense training together down below in the comment section. We will catch you all in the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.